really all you can focus on is just, going out, taking one game at a time, playing each day the best you can, and putting your best foot forward and taking care of yourself and not relying on other teams.
All right, Cal, here we are in Milwaukee, and this is one that I've never done before. I don't think I've ever asked anybody about a 22-0 loss the night before.
Right.
I kind of know how I look at it. I'm interested in how you look at something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you take it for what it is. It's nobody ever wants to get beat like that, but at the same time, you move on just like you move on from a victory, and that's in the past and that's behind you, and you can't live in the past, and today's a new day, and you go out and you have a job to do, and that's kind of just being mentally disciplined to make sure that you're ready to go the next day, no matter if you won big, lost a close one, won a close one, doesn't matter. So it's a new day, and each guy has a job to do, and we have we have to come out ready to play with it.
And with what happened last night, I guess the good news is you didn't lose any ground to the Astros in the West. How do you take a look at what you were able to do coming into Milwaukee? And I would count that game in New York too, the game 3.
Yeah, I mean, right now our focus is more on ourselves, not so much, the focus on other teams or, whatever else might be out there. So we're just focusing on us, and like I said, thought we had the last couple of games minus yesterday, and trying to build off that. And like I said, this time of year, that's when people start, scoreboard watching and stuff like that, and you read everything. You keep that far away and focus on yourselves, because like I said, you can't control what they do, you can't control what other people say, talk about. You just really all you can focus on is just going out, taking one game at a time, playing each day the best you can, and putting your best foot forward, and taking care of yourself, and not relying on other teams to determine your fate.
And what have you seen in that play? I know that I think it was game 1 in New York. You came out and you spoke, and that was very much appreciated. And there were some things that you said you needed to see from yourself, you needed to see from the club. We did see some good after that. So I'm kind of curious as to where you are with that on both fronts.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we, played a really good last, handful of games. Obviously, like I said, minus yesterday, but, sometimes things happen like that, and you flush them. You don't let it kind of linger, and you just get back to what I said. Playing with an edge, playing focused, playing determined, and like I said, our guys have been doing that over the last handful of games. I've been very proud of them. So like I said, try to keep that going, try to keep that kind of momentum, and that kind of that edge, like I talked about, going each and every day, and knowing that we're down the home stretch. So
where does that edge come from? Where does it start?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just kind of starts. It's more of an attitude. It's not really something you can kind of quantify or put a number on. I think it's just like going out there every day, and each guy's locked in, and not to a point where you're locked up, but to a point where you're playing free, you're playing loose, you're playing determined, you're playing aggressive, and doing all those things. So I think that's kind of what you see, and I think the result of it is good defense, pitchers throwing, being competitive in the zone, going after hitters, obviously like I talk about, commanding strike zone and stuff like that, and then from the hitter side of things, just spray the ball around the yard, taking your walks and using the whole field, and not getting too big, and finding a way to scratch and claw even in those tough times, and with runners in scoring position, and 2 strikes, and I think that's kind of what the result is of that edge.
You talked about taking your walks. That's something that you have certainly done. Where is that coming from?
Just trying to get a good pitch to hit. Trying to have a good approach. If you have a good approach, if your shoulder stays on the ball a little longer, when your shoulder stays on the ball a little longer, you're able to, foul more stuff off. You're able to put more balls in play. You're able to, use the whole park. So I think that's kind of what you see. And like I said, you're able to recognize pitches sooner. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
What's that like for you to be able to do that right now as compared to earlier when it seemed like that was kind of tying you up a little bit?
Yeah, just, just trying to understand that, basically, in the simplest way to put it is, I want to be on the field. I don't want to be on the bench. So, if I'm helping the team by getting a walk, by putting the ball in play, doing those little things, that's a lot better than, me, flying out or striking out. So trying to just help the team however way I can.
We've seen you take more batting practice on the field than we normally do. Has that been to work on that approach and keeping the shoulder? And
yeah, I mean, just trying to, it's just different. Some days you take it, sometimes you don't, and you're still getting your work in, whether it's in the cage or on the field, and sometimes you want a little more, see the ball flight, and you want to get the backdrop of what the field's like, and you're kind of just doing all that, and then sometimes you don't need that. You need to make sure you get some extra rest and just get your drills in the cage, and so it's just kind of goes day by day.
When we look at where the team is right now, I've heard some talk about simplifying. Has there been any change in the last couple of weeks about approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think to us it's still preaching, using the middle of the field and sometimes, you can start swaying or searching maybe for something different, something else that might show more results at the time, but ultimately, you want to stay in the heart of the big part of the field and do that. And even though it's, cliche, even though it's sometimes a boring thing to say, it's true. I mean, you stay in the big part of the field. That's where, a lot of the hits come from. And you end up finding more holes and be able to stay on pitches that are away and turn on pitches that are in. And you're really, like I said, you're using three different parts instead of, one side of the field only, where that can get a little predictable sometimes. So
is that what we saw when we saw 37 hits in 2 days? That was Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I even thought, in some of the New York series, I thought there was, I think, game 2, Julio and Randy led off with 2 opposite field homers, and you saw guys using the whole field, and Houston as well. And you're going to pull the ball. I mean, it's not a bad thing to pull the ball, but I think that kind of dictates from, being in good counts and being on a good approach. So, yeah, I think you saw that. I think you saw a lot of guys using the whole field and, guys grinding out of bats. And like I said, I think that's kind of the identity of this team is what we do is, when we're at our best, we're using the big part of the field. And obviously we are hitting homers, but we're doing it, because of that. We're not trying to hit homers. So
I think the way you put it, you haven't put it this way, but that to me reads you earn your home runs, basically.
Yeah. I mean, very rarely do you see guys actually, try to go up there, hit homers, and they actually do. So, yeah, I mean, the game will reward you if you're trying to do the right thing. And sometimes you're going to have different approaches. It's not always going to be the same based off who's on the mound, situation of the game. But like I said, overall, if you can try to do the right things and you're putting a good foot forward, and the game will reward you with the good things.
Speaking about good things, Bryan Woo was last outing in particular. What did you see from him?
Yeah, I thought he was really good. He was able to, keep him off balance, had a good mix of the, a lot of good sinkers I thought he threw, and was able to, mix a few off speeds in there as well. And thought he did a good job. He was pretty efficient for the most part all the way through, gave up, I think, 2 solo homers, but, solo homers don't kill you, essentially. And, that's just him being aggressive, and sometimes that happens. And like I said, he's really efficient, was attacking in the zone, making them hit the ball, and creating weak contact.
It seemed, I think you were not a believer and it was a home road thing. I think you were just thinking it was just more of a good game, not so good game thing with him. To me, it seemed like he was a little bit more aggressive out there, a little bit more. You can see it with him in particular when he is in just all out. He's not Walter, but he's got this compete mode to him that you see out there.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I never really believed in the home road thing. Obviously it was coincidental, but to me, I just wanted to see him go out there his last couple of times and just empty the tank. Don't leave anything, on the table. Don't feel like you have to go out there and you have to, start slow, or you have to try to get the feel in there. When in reality, I know I just want to see him go out there and empty to take each inning, and then whenever that time comes, when it's time to come out of the game, then he'll be he'll give everything that he had, and yeah, I just kind of like want to see that kind of closure mentality out of him. So
Closer mentality.
yeah,
I like his intensity. I mean, even in games that he's not in or when he comes out, he seems to be an energy and an intensity, a good intensity in the dugout.
yeah. No, I mean he's really stepped up as a vocal leader in the clubhouse, especially from the pitcher side of things. And sometimes when you're a pitcher, you're just kind of in the dugout and you're not really, you're not in the game. You can be checked out, but I give him credit. He stays locked in. He's with our guys. He's fighting with us every day, even if he's not playing. And says a lot about him, as a teammate and his character. And it's good when you got all guys kind of pulling in the right direction. That's kind of what he does when he's in the dugout not playing. So
What's the equivalent on the hitter side?
and what?
Who's a guy that kind of does the same thing, that really just kind of stands out?
Yeah, I mean, I think Victor Robles does a great job. Somebody who stays in the games at all times, even when he's not playing. So, ultimately it's a little different sometimes as a hitter because you never know when you might get called to be in that game. Whereas like a starting pitcher, they if they're not playing that day, they're not playing that day. They're in turfs, they're eating seeds, they're on the bench, pretty much, taking it easy. But for him to be able to keep that energy to stay locked in on the game and all 27 outs is very big for us.
A fun moment, one of my favorite moments on this road trip was the final out in Houston. Taylor Trammell, the last pitch you call is the first changeup that Andres Munoz throws. Were you trying to set that up? Why did you call that there? And tell us a little bit about his change.
Yeah, I mean, he's been throwing it this year a little more than he did last year, and it's a really good pitch, just trying to find opportunities to use it, and I thought that was a good time, 0-2 count, and obviously changeups are tough for hitters to pick up, and give him credit, he threw a really good one, so need to, hopefully keep building on it and, using that pitch because it's a good pitch.
Okay, lastly, we're going to finish up a series here in Milwaukee. You're going to go home. It's going to be the Cubs. What do you want to see from this group? Sometimes you really have that ability to rise to the challenge, and they're going to be in front of you this next 6 days.
Yeah, I mean, these are good teams, and, that's where we want to be. If we want to get to where we want to go, we got to be able to beat these teams, and we got to be able to, rise to the occasion like this. So, you face the challenge head on. You don't sway away from it. You don't, shy from it. I think, to me, it's just, showing up every day, and, you're obviously still doing the same thing that you always do, but, understanding that we have a job, and it doesn't matter who's on the other side. To me, it's more focused about kind of what we're doing. Like, are we bringing it every day? Are we ready to play every day? Are we prepared? Do we have that edge? Do we have that attitude of, we're coming here, we're going to, play hard, we're going to do what we need to do to win this game, rather than looking, on the other side and the other dugout, looking at who's, we're playing against. So.
Cal, thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.